Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Todd Klindt's SharePoint Netcast number 161, recorded live on Monday, July 1st, 2013. I am your host and NSA whistleblower, Todd Klindt, and of course, as always, this glorious production, all of this around me, was provided by the fine folks at Rackspace.com. They provide SharePoint hosting and Linux hosting and SQL stuff and just all kinds of great hosting stuff. So if you have any hosting needs, if you have SharePoint needs or Exchange or any of that kind of stuff, go to Rackspace.com. You can go to SharePoint.Rackspace.com to find out about all of the great stuff that my team does. But Rackspace.com, the only needed sponsor for Todd Klindt's SharePoint Netcast. Okay, so let's go on to production notes. Didn't do a Netcast last week. I stink. It's that whole thing when I go on the road, I get all lazy and tired and don't do a Netcast, so I didn't do one last week. And I don't remember how everything went 2 weeks ago, so I'm just going to pretend that it went perfect. The audio was crisp. I was as handsome as ever. Everything looked good because I just don't remember otherwise. So we're just going to assume that 160 was perfect and that they will all be measured against how great 160 was when I did it. And then we'll move out smartly to this week's topics. So I got a lot of topics this week because I had a bunch of topics for last week and then talked myself out of going online. So we'll try to squeeze them in. Plus, I'm a little late tonight. Hardware kicked my butt again. Got all cocky, and so we're running a little late tonight. First thing I wanted to talk about, so this is July 1st. Those of you who've been around these parts for a few years know what July 1st is. Not only is it 3 days before Independence Day here in the United States, but it is also the day where I find out if Microsoft has renewed my MVP. So the MVP program, the renewal dates are the beginning of each quarter, once a year. I got mine on July 1st of 2005, I think. And so today was the day. I was very nervous, as I am all throughout every month of June. And then I checked my email very slowly, all that kind of stuff. But I did get the email today. I have been renewed as an MVP. So this is the eighth year in a row that I've gotten that. So thank you to Microsoft for that. Thank you to all you folks in the SharePoint community that read my stuff and go to my sessions and all that. Because without you guys, I wouldn't do all this stuff, and then I wouldn't be an MVP, and I wouldn't have all those boxes and stuff on my bookcase there. So thanks to all of you guys. Again, couldn't do it without you. But I made it again. One more year in the bag. Hopefully, we'll be able to hit the decade mark here in a couple of years. And congratulations! A bunch of my friends were renewed. One of my coworkers, John Ross, and Mark Rhodes, and just all kinds of folks. It's been all over Twitter and Facebook. So thanks again to everybody. I appreciate it, and hopefully I will earn that again next year, this coming year. It's given in arrears, so I got it today for the stuff I've done 12 months leading up to today. So hopefully I'll earn it again next year. So I talked a little bit about, during the production notes, that I was gone last week. I was at TechEd EMEA. That was in Madrid, Spain, and had a blast. So I was there all week. Almost didn't get out of Spain. That's a story for a later time. Not sure if I'll have time to tell that story tonight or not. But was there all week. Flew in Sunday. Monday, did an all-day pre-con on installing SharePoint 2013 and using PowerShell and mistakes not to make and all that. Had a different sidekick. Shane did not go over to Madrid with me. I think Shane's wanted in Spain. I'm not sure. He was very cagey about all that. So I had a different sidekick, a co-worker of mine, Corey Burke. Corey is out of the Rackspace UK office, and I drug him into that session, kicking and screaming. These day-long sessions are really tiring, and so I just wanted to have some backup there. Corey did an admirable job, didn't embarrass himself hardly at all, so that's good, better than I can say for myself. And so we taught those folks all day about SharePoint 2013. On Tuesday and Wednesday, just tried to keep busy, kind of milled around. Tuesday was a big day. I think that was the day that Microsoft released the Windows 2012 R2 preview and the SQL 2014 previews. So I downloaded those and immediately installed those onto VMs and started playing with those. Wednesday I did a couple of things. I spent some time at the Hey Scripting Guy booth. Ed Wilson is very generous about that, letting me hang out with the PowerShell kids. And so I hung out with those guys for a while, talked to some vendors about things, and just kind of kept busy. Walked by the Splunk booth and got my Splunk shirt. This one is Data with Destiny, and that's the folks at Splunk. Oh, geez, and then the MK. Oh, there it is. So thanks out to Adrian Hall at Splunk for all this. Lynn in the chat room is asking if I bought any more Surfaces in Madrid. I did indeed buy 2 more Surfaces in Madrid. They did a similar thing at TechEd Europe that they did in the United States, where you could buy one Surface Pro, which is actually the thing powering the slideshow in the back now, and one Surface RT. And oh yeah, so for you folks, when I was showing my shirt, the camera is different. You'll have to download the recording to see it. And then, sorry about that. So back to it. So got another Surface Pro, another Surface RT. When TechEd US came out and the word got out that everybody's going to be able to buy those Surfaces really cheap, I had about 4,000 people contact me about getting RTs and Pros. And so I kept, when I went to New Orleans, I kept the first RT and Pro for myself, got the rest for other people, so I just kind of carried that on for EMEA. And it worked great this time because they didn't have them on site. What they did was you got a voucher when you signed in that had a code. You went online, you ordered them online, and they just shipped them to your house. So I ordered them while I was there. They were waiting for me when I got home. Actually, they showed up today, so I didn't have to worry about that. So one thing I did want to mention, though, since you guys brought up the Surfaces, is this is the first time I've ever done this in my whole life, and that's kind of embarrassing. But got the Surface RT, been using it a lot, really like it, and kind of wanted to bling my ride a little bit. Kind of wanted to spruce the little RT up a little bit. RTs are everywhere now. The Surfaces are everywhere. And so I wanted to kind of have mine stand out a little bit. So I went to a website and tried to order a skin for it. And I thought, what kind of skin would I have for my RT? So I thought a little bit about it. And I decided, so I ended up going to skinit.com, SKINIT.com, and got a little skin here for the old RT. So uploaded the picture from my website of my car, and then put my URL across the bottom. I tried to use a Gothic font to kind of match the font on my car. The good news is it matched the font on my car. The bad news is it's mostly unreadable by the human eye. So I'm going to probably order a different one. My Pro doesn't have a skin, and so I'll probably order another one and then fix that a little bit. But these are 4 Surface devices, so it's got 2 pieces, so you can hinge it in the middle. And also, they do another thing which I'm probably going to get rid of, but they give you a front skin as well, and you can see it kind of. There you go. It has the same picture as the back, but then they give you the image to go in the middle. I'll probably get rid of the front skin, honestly, because that's kind of lame, and I don't much like that. But the back skin, loving this. Like I said, I've never gotten a skin for a laptop or anything before, and I definitely love it. And it's gotten a lot of looks. I had 4 people come up to me at TechEd in Europe and start conversations with me because of my Surface skin. So if you need a skin, you can't go wrong with skinit.com. Big fans of that. So, okay. So yeah, so did that. Sent those in. Got those. Got the tablets. Thursday, then Corey and I had another session we went to. We did, and that was our admin session. And that went over really well. Did an Ask the Experts thing, had a blast with that. This week was big because it was the same week as Build. And so also this week, and I'll go ahead and have this in my notes someplace else, but we'll talk about it now, along with Windows Server 2012 R2 and SQL 2014 previews, System Center 2012 R2 was also released, and Windows 8.1 and RT 8.1. So those came out, I think, on Wednesday the 26th, if I remember right. So I actually have those installed on both of my boxes now. So my Surface Pro, right down here, is running Windows 8.1, and the Surface RT with the fancy Trans Am skin is also running RT 8.1. Got those at the conference. The conference internet was not bad in Madrid. Now, I was using it in the speaker lounge, and I think we've got a little different wireless there, fewer folks. But the folks in Europe also had ready for us 16 gig USB drives that had the Windows 8.1 on them. So if you couldn't download it, it had the patch, and it had the ISO, and that already worked. So to get the 8.1 preview, and remember this is a beta, preview is just a fancy word for beta, you need to go out to windows.microsoft.com, and there's going to be the big page there, and there's going to be a, show me the preview. When you go to that web page, it's going to install a hotfix, and this is RT or Windows 8 on any other device. When you install that hotfix, it's going to tell you need to reboot your box. When you reboot your box, the next time you go to the Microsoft Store, it's going to tell you there's an update for Windows, and it's going to download it from there and get it that way. So I'm running 8.1 on 3 boxes now, 2 Windows 8.1s and 1 RT, and I've had no problems whatsoever with it. It's been smooth, no issues. Folks on Twitter having a little different experience. I know a couple of folks who have had problems. Not huge things. It doesn't seem like systemic issues, but there are some problems out there, so beware of that. Both devices let you create a recovery key. I highly recommend you do that, and that backs up your 8.0 and all that. So if 8.1 doesn't work for you, then you can revert back to 8.0. But one thing to keep in mind, both for Windows 8 and RT, this is a beta. There is no upgrade path to 8.1 when it comes out this fall. None. If you put the 8.1 beta on your devices, like I have here, you will have to reinstall when 8.1 comes out. Now, this may or may not be a big deal. For the RT devices, it's when you do the install, it's not going to wipe your drive, but it is going to remove all your apps. You'll have to reinstall all your apps. But that's not a big deal because with RT, you can only install apps from the store. So after you get the RTM 8.1 on, you'll go to the store, your apps will be there, you'll download them all. Not a huge problem. For the Surface Pro or other Windows 8 devices, it might be a problem because you can install desktop apps on those machines, and those are not from the store. You will have to redo those. So I have no reasons why you shouldn't do the 8.1 preview, but remember, this preview is a beta, and so you are going to have to reinstall, so make sure you act accordingly with that. One of the things so a couple of things with that have come out. With Windows 8.1, you have now SkyDrive offline capability, which is really nice. So SkyDrive has been built into the Windows devices forever, but now you have the ability to mark SkyDrive as available offline, and it will bring all of your stuff locally. Now, that's really cool and something that was sorely needed. In this preview, though, there's no folder selection. So it's possible, especially if you've got an RT device that has a small drive, it's possible that if you select that, it's going to fill your drive up with your SkyDrive content. So in the preview, there is no folder selection, so be very, very careful with that. Another cool thing that you can do is you can sync all of your Windows 8 and RT devices to SkyDrive, and if you tell every device to do this, when you make a change on one device, like add a tile to the start screen or something, or change your background, it will sync it to all of your other Windows 8 devices, and that is just super cool. And I wasn't even really paying much attention to that, but I was playing with my RT device, and my Pro device was getting set up, and had that set, and I changed the background on my RT device, and I was just going through the different new backgrounds because they've got these cool animated backgrounds. And as I was testing the background on one device, I could see it changing on the other device in my my periphery. So that was pretty cool. I'm liking that feature, and I think that's kind of the way that it should go. In the keynote Thursday morning, John Devon of Microsoft, who is a senior VP of something, demonstrated this by having an RT device set up, having it configured, having apps on it, and he took his Surface RT and he dropped it into a fish tank. which of course killed it, rendered it useless. He grabbed another RT device. They had a couple of them setting up. He signed in with his SkyDrive account and saw it churn for a little bit, and things started popping in place, and his background was back, his apps were back, everything just worked. Now, I don't recommend dropping any of your RT devices in the fish tank. The fish don't like it. The RT device certainly doesn't like it. But that's all part of that now. So, big fan of that. I've been loving on the Windows 8 and the RT device for the last month or so, and this 8.1 preview has been nothing to dissuade me otherwise. I have seen some stuff. If you're on an RT device and you have languages installed, don't install the preview yet. I only speak English, so it's never come up. Lynn in the chat room is asking, does this sync with the Windows Phone also? I don't believe so. That was something that was conspicuously absent from all this. Everything seemed to be getting upgrades except Windows Phone, and I think that's all slated for next year. So I don't know if that all syncs with Windows Phone or not. So I don't know. But I'm leaning towards no. I don't have a Windows Phone, Windows 8 phone, so I can't test that. But again, the month of using these devices and the traveling with them has done nothing to cool my love for the devices. I did want to shout out or bring up, and I didn't have this in my notes. Shame on me. My last blog post is on Windows 2012 R2 preview, which of course is the server version of Windows 8.1, and that has been pretty cool. So that highlights some of the UI changes that they made, which are the same in Windows 8 and Windows 8.1. Of course, the big one everybody's heard about now is that they added a start button, which is not really the start button that we kind of all were expecting, and more importantly, it's not a start menu. So now on the Windows 8.1 and the Windows Server 2012 R2 desktop, in the lower left-hand corner they have a Windows button, and if you click that, it takes you to the start screen. And so that's kind of nice. Also now in Windows 8.1 and 2012 R2, we have the option of booting to the desktop or not. Now, Windows Server 2012 booted to the desktop, Windows 8 did not. And so now we've kind of got this option. Doug in the chat room is saying that the start button seems like a waste of space. I disagree. I think that it serves a very important purpose. I think for most of us, especially the people that are watching this Netcast, we've used Windows 8 and Windows 2012 enough that we know the other alternatives. But for people like my mom, it's tough to remember that. And also, especially for the people in the chat room, we're all using, Windows RDP clients and, I don't want to say professional virtualization tools, but better virtualization tools. But there are some RDP clients that can't pass that Windows key, so if you hit it on your client, it doesn't go through to the machine you're RDP into. And without that start button, you got like 2 pixels in the corner you have to highlight over, and if you've got a windowed RDP box, it's tough to get in there. So I think it's good that it's there. What I don't like, though, and I thought this would be the case, is I don't like that there's no option to shut it off. So what I would like is for people like you and I that don't need the start button anymore to just shut it off and get that real estate back. But it doesn't look like that's in there. Hopefully that will make it into the RTM version of the product. So that's good. So the start screen has a couple of enhancements. They have changed my computer. So the start screen is similar but different between Windows 2012 and Windows 8. Server 2012, you get a shortcut to Explorer on the start screen and a shortcut to Task Manager, and those are still here. Those don't show up on Windows 8 or 8.1. They've renamed my computer to this PC, and so that's odd, but it's still just Explorer. But another thing that they've done is on the start screen, and I haven't exactly figured out what triggers this, but they will, when you get to the start screen, they'll bring up a little circle with an arrow in it, and that's your way of knowing that if you click that, then it'll bring up the All Apps view. So that's handy that they've got that now. That's not there all the time, but it seems to be to show up once in a while. And then when you go to that All Apps view, now they've made the sorting there all the time. So With Windows 8 and Windows 2012, your apps were just sorted by name, and that was just it. Now, if you install a bunch of them, then you got this whole sort by most used and all that. But now that sorting is all there built in, which is nice. Another thing you can do now is the customization of the start screen on both OSs is a little easier to customize. You can make really small icons now, and it's easier to name those groups. You could name them before, but it was kind of tricky to get to. Now there's just a customized thing. So I'm a big fan. I'm glad they did it, and I'm probably going to be blogging more about that. So I apologize to those of you that read my blog and listen to my Netcast only to hear about SharePoint, because you'll probably be hearing a little bit more about these products as I start investigating them and playing with them a little bit more. Because I think I finally come around. You know, all this Windows 8 stuff came out in October of 2012, so it's been 9 months. And I'm finally coming around to figuring out their view. I think having Windows 8 and Windows RT on good touch devices has made me appreciate some of the decisions that they've made a little bit more. I still don't have it on my main desktop, but I'm getting close to that. I think I might do that at some point. So I definitely encourage you to go out, grab the Windows Server 2012 R2 preview, and install it in a VM, play with it a little bit. You know, for those of us that do SharePoint, SharePoint's eventually going to end up on that, so the more familiar you get with it now, the better off you'll be down the road. But TechEd was a great success. Had a blast. Had a tough time getting out of Spain. The plane that I was trying to fly out of Friday morning, one of the wings, the flaps on one of the wings was broken, and the pilot apparently got all excited about that, so my flight got canceled. I had to find another way home. It was pretty stressful, but I did it. I made it. I'm here. You can see I'm back in the illustrious Klindt studios, so that's good. Oh, another thing that came out that I don't have in my notes, I have terrible notes, is that they have released a SkyDrive Pro client for Windows 8, 8.1, and Windows Server 2012. So that's good. And this is, of course, the professional version of SkyDrive. I've downloaded it and installed it on a couple of my boxes. From what I can tell, it only works with SharePoint Online, Office 365. It does not seem to work with SharePoint 2013. And so if you install the SkyDrive Pro client, it doesn't look like you're going to get that whole sync to SharePoint Workspaces thing. You need to play with it a little bit more, but I got very excited when I saw the SkyDrive Pro client, and then was very disappointed when I actually tried to use it. But I'm going to investigate that a little bit more. So you guys just stay put. I'll get it all figured out for you. Don't you worry about that. So the next thing, and I apologize to everybody that I did not talk about this 2 weeks ago when I did my Netcast on 160. That's where this should have went. But Microsoft has announced when the next SharePoint conference will be. It will be in Vegas, of course, right? But this year, at least at the Venetian, not at Mandalay Bay. But the SharePoint conference, the next one will be in 2014. It will be March 3rd through the 6th at the Venetian. So start blocking out your calendars for that. Don't know much else about it. You can go to SharePointConference.com. Microsoft's just kind of got a loop running there. You can sign up for updates. But that is SharePoint Conference, March 3rd through March 6th, 2014 at the Venetian in Las Vegas. So should have brought that up last week. I don't even know how I missed that, but that's all there. Okay, so a couple other things. We got some big news this week. So it's March. No, it's not. It's July. Last month was June, which was an even-numbered month. And what does that mean? That means patches. And when we last got together, some of the patches were out, some of the patches were not out. And that picture has gotten a little more in focus. So on the 26th, Microsoft released the SharePoint Server 2013, June 2013 CU. So previously to that, we only had the SharePoint Foundation patches for SharePoint 2013. But on the 26th, Microsoft released the SharePoint Server and SharePoint, or then the Project Server patches for SharePoint 2013. So that's good. So that I've forgotten now what build that puts us at. I don't even have it in my notes. I'm a terrible, terrible person. Let me go look at my builds page. So that puts us at 15.0.4517, and that's the June 2013 CUs for SharePoint 2013. But unfortunately, Microsoft giveth, and Microsoft taketh away. The very next day, the June 2013 CU for all of SharePoint 2010 was pulled. So now we have no June 2013 CU for SharePoint 2010. I have not heard why that was the case, but that patch was pulled. So if you downloaded the June 2013 CU for SharePoint 2010 but have not installed it, I would run out right now, pause this recording, and delete every version of those files anywhere that they happen to be on any of your machines. They're clearly very toxic and will destroy everything in their path. So I haven't heard why that was pulled, and I haven't heard when we can look forward to a better version of that. So for SharePoint 2010, we've still got some patches. I have not installed the SharePoint 2013 version of that patch, but for SharePoint 2010, the June CU was pulled. And of course, you can go to toddklindt.com/SP2010 builds to see the list, or you can follow me on Twitter at SP2010 patches. And for SharePoint 2013, you can go to toddklindt.com/SP2013 builds and follow me on Twitter, SP2013 patches. And hopefully, when I'm doing the editing, I put the URLs up here now because of the black. So hopefully I'll put those in here and you can see those. Mark Christman in the chat room is saying he's afraid to touch CUs now. He's just going to wait for the service packs. You know, that's a funny comment, Mark. I get asked a lot which cumulative update, for SharePoint 2010 specifically, that I recommend people install. And it's getting harder and harder for me to recommend any. Obviously, can't recommend the June one because that one is so terrible that Microsoft pulled it off of the market. The April one is not bad, but it's got this nasty regression with managed metadata. And the February one is not bad, but it introduces a couple of other things that haven't been fixed. So problems with IE7 and all that. So I'm just, not sure. It's tough. Mark in the chat room is also asking any word on Service Pack 2 for SharePoint 2010. I haven't heard anything. The public beta has been out for a while. I'm saying it could probably drop any day. I mean, I don't know. I don't have any inside information on that, but I'm guessing that's got to be getting close. And for SharePoint 2013, I think the March 2013 public update is probably the way to go for now. That's one good one for SharePoint 2013. Speaking of patches, I was trolling around the Microsoft website, just looking for stuff, kind of bored, and I discovered that starting with SharePoint 2010, starting with the December 2012 CU, they introduced a thing in the configuration wizard, or when the configuration wizard runs, it checks the schema of the lists and all that in your content database. And so that's just to make sure that things aren't getting screwed up and all that, which is kind of cool. The problem becomes is if you had a problem before this patch went on, you install this patch, and this problem gets caught during the config wizard, then you're stuck because you can't uninstall the patch. And so they provide an interesting solution to this. They show how you can mount in PowerShell a database that's offline and get into kind of like a PowerShell version of the offline database recovery stuff in Central Admin. So that was kind of cool that you can do all that stuff. So there's a link to this on the page for that patch. So if you go to toddklindt.com/December 2012 CU, there's a link to the knowledge base article that explains that and then has that PowerShell in there. So that was kind of interesting that they slipped that Okay, so we're coming up on a half an hour. I have so many other things to talk about. I should just start this thing on time. That'll probably just make it easier for everybody involved. I'm highlighting the things that I talked about in case I don't get to everything. So, yeah, we got all that. So I don't embarrass myself and talk about these things next week again. Okay, so I think we have time for one more. Yeah, we'll see at least one more. So this has come up a couple of times in the past month or so, and I just kind of want to bring it out. It's definitely something I need to blog, but I just haven't yet. It's this problem that people get when they're trying to do things inside of SharePoint 2013, application type things, and they get 404 errors. So there's a couple scenarios where this happens, and it's the same fix regardless. So one of the ways is if you have all of your app stuff configured, you go out to the SharePoint Marketplace, you find the coolest new free app, weather app, or I assume that there are now fart apps for SharePoint because that seems to be the hallmark of any good platform. But you download whatever this free app is, and you walk through the thing, and everything works, then you try to load it, and you get a 404. Wah, wah. Or the other way that this can rear its ugly head is if you decide that you need to have the SharePoint now, the Access Service application in SharePoint 2013. And so you download the document, which is about 47 pages, and you go through the process, which is horrible and horrendous and makes you do terrible things to SQL Server. And you get all this done, and you hook Access up, and you try to publish something, and when you try to publish it, you get 404s. So what's happening? So Lori Gowan in the chat room has said that she's given me permission to mention her name. She had this problem with Access Services. So she was installing Access Services a couple of weeks ago and fought the good fight and got it all figured out. And it's a terrible process. And got to the end and went to actually try to use one of these Access apps and got the 404. So both of these are symptoms of the same problem because when you use the Access Service app, you are creating a SharePoint app, but with Access. So what is happening is that in your SharePoint farm, when you set up your application management service application, your subscription setting service application, you provide it with an application URL namespace. So the example we always give is if your company's URL is contoso.com, then it's going to be something like contosoapps.com or apps-contoso.com, something to keep that whole security boundary in your browser intact. Keep those cross-site scripting attacks reduced. And then when you create that, you have to create a DNS zone, you have to create a wildcard record, and you have to point it at a server running SharePoint. So the last piece of that, and the piece that if you miss causes this problem, is wherever that wildcard record points to, whatever IP address, be it a load balancer or a SharePoint server, whatever, there needs to be a SharePoint web app on the other end of that, and wait for this, this is the important part, and it has to have no host header. So when these applications are created and downloaded, they create random addresses. So you set the prefix up when you're configuring all this. It's usually app-something. And then Microsoft assigns what it calls a mini GUID at the end of that. And all this gets rendered out by SharePoint. So what happened to Lori, and what's happened to several other people that I've talked to, is they didn't create a SharePoint web app without a host header. And so when this request came in, IIS looked at it and said, this host header doesn't match any that are defined. I'll put it to whatever one doesn't have a host header, and by default, that's the IIS 8 default website. The one with the globe and all that stuff. And that one doesn't know anything about SharePoint, and so you're looking at this request that's several layers deep, doesn't exist on that website in IIS, you get a 404. And so that's what's happening. So for Lori, the solution was as simple as creating another web app with no host header in it, or deleting the host header of an existing web app, whatever, and then it'll all work. So don't forget that piece. It's very important. And if you get 404s when using apps, that is 100% of the time what the issue is. Even if you're positive you have it all set up correctly, that's still the issue. It's never not been the issue. So check that out. So thanks to Lori for reminding me of that one. Okay, so, well, we got time for one more. I'm not going to get into these other two. We got an email from Mark Dayton a couple weeks ago. Mark said, your information is top-notch. You could possibly be both the smartest and best-looking SharePoint administrator ever. Shucks, Mark, you flatter me. I get all embarrassed when I hear this stuff. But he did mention that my blog did not have a favicon. Favicons are those little things that when you create a shortcut in your browser, it's the little image. And by default, SharePoint's got the little orange image, the little orange people thing. And he was saying that mine had that, and it was pretty boring. And so he made a favicon image for me to add to my site. Now, this is very sweet of Mark. I appreciate that. But as I was reading this email, I'm like, I have one of those. I'd already done that. I know where the file's at. What the heck? And then I remembered. I had a favicon, but I lost it in the great server deletion of 2012, last June, during TechEd. And if y'all remember, my blog went away for a week or so. It was during that time that I lost my favicon. There was many casualties of that week. My favicon was just one of them. And the reason that I lost it is because I made a questionable decision to put it in the file system of my server. So it ends up, it's something you have to define in your master page. And in my master page, I defined it as /_layout/images, and then / I think it was ta-favicon.ico. And so when the server went away, the file went away, the reference did not, and so there's no favicon there. So I need to, yes, I think Lynn had to hear the whole version of the story, including the weeping and the gnashing of teeth. So the master page is still looking for it. I just need to get it in there and get everything set up. So thanks to Mark for that. I will create that, get that set out there. I appreciate that. Randy Driscoll has a blog post on how to set that up, and I think I probably got that maybe somewhere. So this is essentially what I did. This is Randy's blog post on it, and I just need to put the file back in place. Now in Randy's blog post, he puts it in a style library, probably not a horrible idea. I didn't do that because I have many webs, and I wanted the favicon to be the same all over, so I put it in a spot that's always there. But I could do something like use server URL or something. But thanks, Mark, for that. Thanks for reminding me. I do want that favicon back. Okay, so I've got a couple other topics, but I will save them for next week. This is how I build anticipation. So I will tag them accordingly. Okay, so now on to everybody's favorite part of the Netcast, the shameless self-promotion. I need like music for that part of it, some kind of drum roll or something for the shameless self-promotion part of the Netcast. First one, of course, is the book. The book's going crazy. Selling off the shelves. If you go to Amazon.com, let's just do it right now. Let's everybody just take a moment. Go to Amazon.com or we got some Aussies in the house, so Amazon.au. I don't see any Canadians in the house. Enrique, you're from someplace else, so go there. Sean McDonough, does Ohio, would they have their own Amazon? I can't remember. But go to Amazon, whatever your local flavor of Amazon, and search for SharePoint 2013. Oh, look at that. Look at the #1 result. There is our book. And so I've been harping on a bunch of you folks to go out and put reviews out there. A bunch of you have done it. And we've got great reviews. We've got 4.8 out of 5 stars out of 15 reviews. I appreciate that. And I even appreciate, in all seriousness, the 2 of you that did not give us 5 stars. You gave some good feedback. And I appreciate that. So thanks to everybody for that. Lynn in the chat room is asking if I can say how many copies have sold. I don't know. That's not a number that I have access to. So I can't say it, but not because I'm trying to hold it back, just because I don't know that number. When you publish books, depending on which publisher you use and how you do it, you get royalty statements every 6 months or every year, and that hasn't been out long enough to get a royalty statement yet. But it seems to be doing well. I see it all over, and again, we're the top hit on SharePoint 2013. So thanks to everybody. But our work's not done yet. We need to keep going out, selling those books, and making it happen. But again, seriously, thanks to everybody. I do appreciate that. So from a big speaking area. I'll be at SP TechCon in August. So that's August 11th through the, we'll say 14th. You can go to sptechcon.com and sign up for that. If you do, you can put in a promotional code, put in my last name. That is KLINDT. And that gets you, I think, a couple $100 off, and it gets me the undying gratitude to the folks at SP TechCon. It actually gets me more emails from them telling me to promote their conference more, but yeah, you know, that's good. They're good people. And I will be doing that. That's August 11th through the 14th. Then, this is new. First time I've mentioned this out loud to anybody. Right here for you folks that are in the chat room are hearing it first. I haven't even blogged this yet. I will be doing some SharePoint 2010 admin training in Des Moines, just right south here, just on the other side of that curtain, 30 miles give or take. So we've had some requests for local SharePoint training, and so I'm going to be doing that. We talked to the folks that we're going to be looking at it, and they're still kind of doing the SharePoint 2010 thing. So September 16th through September 20th of this year, I'll be doing a SharePoint 2010 administrator training class in Des Moines at the Microsoft office down there. So if you're in the Iowa area, Ames, Des Moines, you know, wherever, and you want to get up to speed on SharePoint 2010 and want to listen to all the same jokes that I've been telling since SharePoint 2003, go ahead and go to SharePoint911.com, click the training link up in the corner, and find the SharePoint 2010 administrator class, and there's a thing there. Couple of questions in the chat room. Perry is asking if there's going to be any online training sessions. So Perry, there are not right now, but I can neither confirm nor deny that there may be efforts afoot to offer online training, live like WebEx sort of things. Stay in touch. Email me, Perry. You've got my email address. If you've got something specific you'd like to have, email me, and I'll talk to you about that. Mark in the chat room, so taking it back to the book, he says he was looking at the book. He said, for anything other than Office web apps, what breaks if you use the classic mode authentication in SharePoint 2013? So yes, there are other things. The thing about classic authentication in SharePoint 2013 is that it doesn't have OAuth, where Claims does. So anything that uses OAuth will not work with classic mode authentication. You've already nailed the Office web apps. They will not work. SharePoint apps will not work because they're granted permissions with OAuth, and the workflow management stuff will not work. So off the top of my head, those are the ones that I know, and then there's some BI stuff also. Enrique in the chat room is asking, should I get my book from Amazon or get a signed copy? Well, thanks for asking, Enrique. If you would like a signed copy of the book and you live in the United States, sorry about that, but you do need to live in the U.S., but you can go to store.toddklindt.com or go to my blog post about the book, and you can order a signed copy of the book. And Harold in the chat room linked up a picture from a guy in Europe, a guy from Germany, Max Melcher. Max has, him and I have been chatting over Twitter, and I took a book over to Madrid specifically to give to him, to sell to him, and I signed it right there in person, and Max put a picture of that up on Twitter. So it's fun, yeah, and if you want a signed copy, I would love to sign one for you. Amazon will probably get it to you more quickly, but it won't be signed, and it's got a lot less personality. So if you want something mean and spiteful and hateful about Shane written in your book, then definitely order a signed copy off of my blog. Okay, so I'm doing the training class in Des Moines, the 16th through the 20th, and then I don't have the dates for this, but I'm also doing the SharePoint Exchange Forum in Stockholm, and I believe that's Sweden. That's going to be like Monday the 30th through Thursday the 3rd, October the 3rd, something like that. So if you're in Northern Europe and want to take a couple of classes from me, Joran Huseman does a great job with that. You can go to seforum.se, SharePoint Exchange Forum.se, and sign up for that. It's going to be an amazing event. It's the 10th anniversary of that event. It's going to be a good time. So that's through the beginning of October. And then probably not going to see a lot of travel from me after that. We'll see, maybe. And I hesitated on whether to talk about this on the Netcast because I think most folks probably just don't care. But because of travel and all, that's kind of how I'm convincing myself to talk about it. My wife and I are expecting a baby. Our third baby is coming, and the third baby is due towards the end of November. And so I'm probably going to be cutting off my travel up to leading up to that, and won't be traveling for a little bit for that. So those events that are coming up are probably the last events that I'm going to travel for a little bit. So if you want to see me in person, that's the time to do it. So getting many congrats in the chat room. Thanks, I appreciate that. Very excited, mostly terrified, but very excited about all that. I will continue to do the Netcast, though, don't worry, unless, of course, the baby does the thing on Monday. So, but that's November. We got a lot of time before then. All right, everybody. So I got a couple of topics that will be for next week. I'm saving them for next week. For those of you in the U.S., have a great 4th of July this Thursday. For those of you not in the U.S., enjoy us Americans not pestering you on the 4th of July. So that's everybody wins. It's all good stuff. So thanks to everybody in the chat room. Thanks for being patient with my technical difficulties, but you guys are very patient, and I appreciate that. But I will see you next week on the 8th, on Monday. If you've got any topics you want to hear me discuss, shout them out. You can hit me up on Twitter at Todd Klindt or email me at todd.klindt@rexbase.com. But that's it. I'm signing off. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.